这是今天10月10号2025年的一篇新闻，主题是青藏高原中国的清洁能源网络试验场。Why China built 162 square miles of solar panels on the world's highest plateau. On the Tibetan Plateau, nearly 10,000 feet high solar panels stretch to the horizon and cover an area 7 times the size of Manhattan. They soak up sunlight that is much brighter than at sea level because the air is so thin. Wind turbines down nearby region rise and stand in long rows across arid, empty plains above. The occasional sheep huddle with his flock. They capture night breeze, balancing the daytime power from the solar panels. Hydropower dams where rivers build down long channels at the edge of the plateau, and high-voltage power lines carry all this electricity to business and homes more than 1,000 miles away. China is building an enormous network of clean energy industries on the Tibetan Plateau, the world's highest. The intention is to harness two regions' bright sunshine, cold temperature, and sky-touching altitude to provide low-cost, renewable energy. The result is enough renewable energy to provide the plateau with nearly all of the power it needs, including for data center use in China's artificial intelligence development. While China still burns as much coal as the rest of the world combined, last month President Xi Jinping made a stunning pledge. Speaking before the United Nations, he said for the first time that the country would reduce its greenhouse gas emissions across its economy and would expand renewable energy sixfold in coming years. It was a moment of global significance for the nation that is currently the world's biggest polluter. China's claims energy efforts contrast with the ambitions of the United States under the Trump administration, which is using its diplomatic and economic muscle to pressure other countries to buy more American gas, oil, and coal. China is investing in cheaper solar and wind technology, along with batteries and electric vehicles, with the aim of becoming the world's suppliers of renewable energy and the products they rely on it. The main group of solar farms, known as the Plateau Solar Park, drives every other cluster of solar farms in the world. It covered 162 square miles in Gonghe County and Alpine Desert in sparsely inhabited Qinghai, a province in western China. No other country on the planet is using high altitudes for solar, wind, and hydropower on a scale as great as China's on the Tibetan Plateau. The effort is a case study of how China has come to dominate the future of clean energy with the help of substantial government-directed investment and planning. Electricity companies are wearing the country of imported oil, natural gas, gas and coal a national priority. Renewable energy helps China power 30,000 miles of high-speed trade routes and its growing fleet of electric cars. At the same time, cheap electricity enables China to manufacture even more solar panels, which dominate global markets and power artificial intelligence data centers. Electricity from solar and wind power in Qinghai, which occupies the northern third of the Tibetan Plateau, costs about 40% less than coal-fired power. Qinghai encompasses most of the phalange known among Tibetans as Amdo and includes the birthplace of the current Dalai Lama, now is in Israel. In July, China's Premier Li Qiang oversees the groundbreaking of 5 additional dams on the Yalong Changpo River in southern Tibet, a region of China that is tightly restricted by the Communist Party and not open to Western journalists. The Chinese government has released little information about the construction of the dams, but they are expected to take years to complete and would most likely constitute the world's largest hydropower projects. Its construction has alarmed India, which fears that China could use it to cut off water supplies to downstream areas of eastern India. China is not the first country to experiment with high-altitude clean energy, but other places as high as Tibetan Plateau are mountainous and steep. Qinghai, slightly bigger than Texas, is mostly flat, optimal for solar panels and the roads needed to bring them in, and the cold air improves the efficiency of solar panels. Switzerland has experimented with small solar power installations at the top of cable railways. It opened a solar power farm at an altitude of 5,940 feet, but it can generate only about 1.5 megawatts, enough to power about 80 American households. The state-owned Power Construction Corporation of China completed a 480 megawatt solar project last year at an altitude of 4,000 feet on the plateau of the Atacama Desert in Chile, which is the world's direct non-polar desert, but much lower than the Tibetan Plateau. Qinghai's Talatan solar project draws this. It has a capacity of 16,930 megawatts of power, which could run every household in Chicago. It is still expanded, adding panels with a target of growing to 10 times the areas of Manhattan in 3 years. Another 4,700 megawatts of wind energy and 7,380 megawatts of hydroelectric dams are nearby. China is now building at even higher elevations in mountain valleys on the Tibetan Plateau, although with smaller solar farms nearly Lhasa, the capital of Tibet. Chinese power company recently installed 150 megawatts of solar panels at 17,000 feet. As an incentive to building solar farms, many Western Chinese provinces initially offered free land to companies. The central government has recently ordered the province to begin charging nominal annual fees to encourage efficient use of the land. The Plateau solar project is on sandy soil with sparse vegetation used as grazing lands by ancient Tibetan herders. The first panels installed at the site in 2012 were so low to the ground that sheep had trouble grazing under them. Now all panels are installed on higher mountains, said Liu Ta, the project manager. Dislocating people for power projects is politically sensitive all over the world, but higher altitude projects affect relatively few people in sparsely populated settlements. China puts more than 1 million people out of their home in west central China a quarter century ago and flooded a vast area for the reservoir of the Shili Georges Dam. This year, China has been installing enough solar panels every 3 weeks to match the power generation capacity of the dam. Generating wind power on Plateau is cheaper. At higher altitudes, the wind blows fast, but the thin air doesn't push wind turbine blades as efficiently as sinker air closer to sea level. Still, the region has many wind turbines. Operators of the electricity grid try to balance the generation of solar power by day with wind power by night to maintain steady voltage and avoid blackouts. Qinghai Province sends exclusive solar power to Shanxi Province in west central China. In exchange, Qinghai tops off their wind power generated locally at night with small amounts of electricity generated by Shanxi coal plants. In addition, Qinghai is increasingly turning to hydropower to balance the Plateau solar power in the hopes of using less coal-fired power. More than a decade ago, 8 dams were built on Yellow River as it drops 300 feet, flowing off the eastern side of Plateau and down into eastern China. More are under construction to balance and supplement the solar energy being generated in Qinghai Province. When photovoltaic power is insufficient, I can use hydropower to make up for it, said Zhu Yuanqing, Power Division Director of Qinghai Provincial Energy Bureau. 2 additional hydropower projects are being built in higher mountain value near the Plateau Solar Park. The plan for both, Qinghai officials said, is to use excess solar power generated during the day to pump water up into the project's reservoir several miles up. The water will be allowed to drop down through mountain tools to Plateau at night. Spinning giant turbulence, it generates immense amounts of electricity. Several electricity-intensive industries are moving to the region to tap its inexpensive power. One is the task of turning quartzite from mines into polysilicon to make solar panels. Data centers for artificial intelligence are also drawn to the area. Qinghai plans to increase its data center capacity more than 5 times by 2030. The facilities are in Xining, the provincial capital, at an altitude of 7,500 feet, and in Yushu and Guoluo, 2 chilly towns at an altitude over 12,000 feet. The data center consumes 40% less electricity, their main operating costs, than similar ones at sea level because air conditioning is barely needed, said Zhang Jingang, the executive vice governor of Qinghai. Warned by the data concerns computer servers is circulated through underground pipes to heat other buildings in Yushu and Guoluo, replacing coal-fired boilers. Mr. Zhang spoke at a news conference in Xining as part of a government-organized media tour this summer of clean energy science in Qinghai, which usually restricts French media access to high descent by its rugged ethnic Tibetan population. The New York Times paid for its own travel costs to connect the data center computing power to many of China's technology companies. Data is transferred from Shanghai to Qinghai on China's national fiber optic grid. The artificial intelligence programming of dancing humanoid robots for a television gala during Lunar New Year in January was done at data centers in Qinghai. But even fiber optic cables do not provide quickly enough communication for one of the fastest growing computation needs in China, self-driving car. The data center for these cars are still in eastern China, where most of the population lives and drives. That kind of the data center must not be placed in Qinghai. Mr. Zhu said an accident may occur if you are not careful. Thanks for listening. Hoping your life with joys and happiness.